I'd like to preface this by saying that I believe in spirits and ghosts. I've had many encounters in my life, and I have tales from my family too, that I retell quite often. Honestly, telling scary stories has become one of my favorite things since I was in 3rd grade. All that aside, my first time living away from my parents began in August 2020, in a cookie-cutter neighborhood that was relatively new and in a very nice area. I lived there with 3 other friends at the time in this 4-bedroom home, and between myself, my best friend and roommate, we had 2 cats, Stark and Hoshi. Hoshi is my cat. He's a funky little man, but he's a good boy nonetheless. But that doesn't omit him from any heinous deeds. In this first house, Hoshi and I got the master bedroom, which included a master bathroom and a walk-in closet. For the entire year I lived there, I never let the closet go without the lights on. I set up LEDs and would hang out in there from time to time when I was overwhelmed, and even slept in there a few times because it was just a comfortable space. But I did not like the closet to be dark. I can't explain why. There just needs to be lights there at all points. If there weren't any lights, I couldn't stand to even look there. Now another part of the bathroom was a huge-ass bathtub that I absolutely adored. I grew up relatively poor, so I hadn't been able to take a comfortable bath in a long time, so I was very excited for this. I don't positively enjoy bathtubs, but I love to boil my skin like a lobster, so when I had a particularly bad day, it was nice to just sit and roast in the warm water. One thing in particular that I like to do on those bad days is lay back and put my head underwater, just enough for my ears to be covered so the world can be muffled for a while. Then I stayed like that for however long my brain needed to feel at peace, and then sit up and I'm good to go. I took baths pretty often at this house. It was a nice privilege compared to what I grew up with, and one day I was bathing and I dipped my head underwater. I stayed still for some time. Then I heard a quick few knocks that were muffled from the water, so I sat up. Thinking it was one of my 3 roommates, I called for them to enter my room, but that I was bathing, so not to come into the bathroom. When I received no response, I shrugged it off as perhaps one of the cats, and underwater I went again. Moments later the knocks happened again and I repeated the process. The 3rd time the knocks happened I got annoyed and texted my roommates asking who keeps messing with my door. The response was that no one was trying to get at my door. Again I assumed our cats were being brats and finished my bath. From that point, any time I dunked my head underwater, I'd hear these knocks. Honestly, I'm ashamed to admit it took me a bit of time to realize, but I finally figured out that the knocks were coming from the side of the bathtub and not my bedroom. The only reason I picked up on it was because the difference in sound of the light wood of the door and the hard plastic of the bathtub. I have no idea what was knocking. And this isn't to try and say anything, but I think whatever was knocking on the side of my bathtub thought that I was going to drown, but who knows. I don't take baths at the new house. We affectionately call it the murder house, so I can't continue to test the knocking. What I will say is that I have a vague idea of what was doing it. In the house we would often see this small shadow, by we I mean 3 out of the 4 of us, that would actively leave our rooms. We would see it run down our hall, or peek around the corners, or even poke its head in our rooms. God, that sounds crazy. Anyway, whatever that shadow was, like idiots, we gave it a name. And I know that you're thinking it was a bad idea. Trust me, I understand. But the shadow never felt malicious. Instead, it felt very calm and curious. We called it Lewis. I think Lewis was knocking on the bathtub, and staying in the closet most of the time, which is why my low-key medium self was always iffy about that space. Who knows the real story though? I have more, that's for sure, but that's the most that came from the cookie-cutter house since we left in August of 2021.